like to introduce our next speaker, Professor Pachankis of the School of Public Health. His research focuses on substantial mental health disparities affecting LGBT people. His studies lead us to think about what it means to possess the valued sexual and gender identity in a society that is yet to carve clear paths for leading these relatively uncharted lives in a way that perceives the uniqueness of these identities while preserving the mental health of those who occupy them. Welcome.
I'm John Pachankis. I'm a clinical psychologist and associate professor of public health. I first wanted to start by thanking the students who nominated me to speak here alongside so many inspiring colleagues tonight. I'll start tonight with a story about my own inspiration and my introduction to the subject area that I study, which is the relationship between stigma and health. So picture this. I was 7 years old, that's me, and we had just moved from the trailer park where I was born to teenage parents to a house on the outskirts of town in Shreveport, Louisiana. I was at a new school, but I quickly had a lot of girlfriends. One of these little girls showed me a book she had checked out from the school library. And I took one look at that book, my eyes lit up, and I thought to myself, I need that book. I would have done anything to get it. So the next week, it's school library day. I raced ahead of all the other students to get the book. I was so excited when I got home that I pulled the Nancy Drew cookbook out of my backpack, and my father exploded. What is this? Why do you have this? This is a girl's book. No son of mine is going to be reading a girl's book. My mother, bless her heart, intervened that night, but I put that book away real fast, and it stayed hidden in my backpack until I could get rid of it as quickly as I'd gotten it. My instinctive joy had been transformed into shame. That night at home with the book, I did something that all stigmatized people do. I saw myself through someone else's eyes, and I didn't love what I saw. This ultimately led me to my life's work. I researched stigma and its consequences. Stigma makes people feel bad about themselves, ashamed. It changes the way they present themselves to the world. But it goes deeper. Stigma makes people sick. And not just gay people. Maybe you've had an abortion and never told anyone about it. Maybe you have herpes. Maybe you're undocumented. Maybe you're lucky and haven't experienced stigma yet. Our research shows that if you live long enough, you probably will experience stigma at some point. So I study the health of people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. Just this past year, my students and I achieved a first for Yale and its School of Public Health when we opened Yale's first outpost in New York City. At Esteem's Research Center, we tackle stigma head on. We ask people to tell us all about their lives, and what they tell us involves a lot of Nancy Drew moments and many more heartbreaking stories. The people in our studies tell us that they don't fully express themselves, that they hold back. They tell us about the ingrained habits they have of seeking validation and avoiding rejection that might work in the short term, but that ultimately come to feel unhealthy or out of their control. Other people in our studies tell us about the lengths they'll go to in order to feel loved and accepted, to make themselves feel acceptable. They act as if they're damaged. Across a lifetime of being told that your needs, your desires, the things that bring you instinctive joy are wrong, this fiction becomes too easy to believe. There are real problems to address here, problems that the field of public health has ignored for far too long. LGBT people represent one of the highest risk groups for depression, anxiety, suicidality, substance use disorders, and HIV infection. Yet until recently, no treatments existed to help LGBT people cope with the damage that stigma does to their lives. Our team here at Yale knew this had to be fixed. There's too much lost human potential and too much injustice when any sizable proportion of the population disproportionately suffers so much. So we developed a treatment that, in as little as 10 weeks, helps LGBT people feel less depressed, drink less, have safer sex, and feel more in control of our lives, of their lives. And we're doing this not just in New York. My colleagues and I have begun developing and delivering treatments like this from Appalachia to Romania to Tajikistan. Here's what we do. We ask the people on our treatment to tell us about their Nancy Drew moments, and we look with them at how they've coped. One of the cruelest parts of stigma is the way that it invisibly gets under our skin to harm our health. It's really hard for the suicidal LGBT teen, and just as hard for the depressed LGBT adult who was told that it gets better when it hasn't, to identify the source of that suicidality and depression in a lifetime of being made to feel invalid. Stigma has a way of making us and our communities believe that we're dysfunctional, when a world where the powerful few control the destinies of the rest is the real dysfunction. So we help people in our studies understand the ways that stigma occupies their minds to make them believe that they're the problem. People internalize the stigma. They silence their authentic voice. They come to believe and behave as if they don't deserve love. They're hypervigilant, always on the lookout for rejection. And not just rejection from straight people, they're on the lookout for rejection from other gay people too. Sometimes this avoidance is so severe that people don't even know what they feel, or they turn to alcohol, drugs, and sex to numb the painful feelings. We help LGBT people in our studies learn skills for overcoming the damage that stigma does to their lives. Sometimes this looks like helping a closeted man who's been closeted for years come out once he's decided that the benefits of living authentically outweigh the cost of constantly sneaking around. Or a young LGBT youth come to realize that they're loved despite the early lessons of the adolescent closet. These skills are scary for people to learn because they involve faith that something meaningful and safe exists on the other side of the closet door. But what people in our studies come to realize is that it's even scarier to let stigma control the course of their lives. So I'll leave you on this note. Until relatively recently in the Western world, people didn't grapple much with identity. Our roles in society were fixed. We didn't choose our work, we didn't choose our love, we didn't choose ourselves. We were saved and damned before we were even born. For members of oppressed groups, stigma might seem to limit who we can become, the choices we make for our life paths. But our research shows stigmatized people that the choices of who they become represent real acts of creativity and courage. Understanding stigma and its impact on our lives and our health is the first step towards breaking free. But that freedom is far from a luxury. Our happiness and ultimately our health depend on it. Thank you.